Thank you, Peter. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and today I'm going to give you a brief overview and highlight a few of the activities that we've been doing in our ARC East of England, or ARC. I'm going to highlight a few things, and I hope that you see by now a connection with everything that you've watched, all the themes and all the activities we've been doing. But before I get into that, how about clarifying what we mean by capacity building in research and implementation? So what we're really trying to do, and this is not a work that we do alone, but we are part of a strong vision and movement across this country and in other parts of the world to ensure that health and social care professionals are equipped to be able to develop, deliver, and also to implement research findings. And that with a view, of course, to improve what we do for the best outcomes for people affected by different conditions or different social settings, and also families affected by such conditions. And you see throughout, I hope, that we are not working alone on this. And I hope to give you some examples of how we try to enable this vision to become reality. So just to utilize a bit of the previous map that you've seen from Peter early on, everything we do is really in relation to original activity. As you may recall by now, we are spread across the whole East of England. We have our universities across different counties, and we have focused on different areas for population. So that is also represented in how we work. So there are 4 different institutions, primarily the health HEIs that we have at the universities, but also our CPFT as the main host trust. But we work also with other organizations. So our capacity building committee oversees the strategy and helps us make decisions. And it is represented by different people from different organizations across our region. So for example, here, the universities are represented. We have a person representing a public involvement member, and also other organizations, NHS or related CCG, for example, activities. And this committee meets quarterly and helps us make decisions and also define and prioritize what may be required in relation to the activities that we are running or propose to run. Also, importantly, everything that we do, we link back to the NIHR Academy. So this is a part of the NIHR that is responsible for the development of people. So if you were to apply for different funding schemes for your development, NIHR Academy offers a number of opportunities. And what we do in our region is to link back to that to ensure there's a pathway and ensure also that we communicate well to make sure the vision that in the NIHR Academy sets is aligned with our vision in our strategy, so that we all move together in enabling the same results and the same successes. So I'm going to quickly present our flagship program. So you may have heard of the Clark Fellows, and now they're called the ARC Fellows. So this is a program that Christine Hill set up about 10 years ago. So it started with the success of previous 2 Clarks, and we carry on and have been refining the model. So the ARC Fellows are health and social care professionals, managers, different people work in different organizations. We accept any levels, any areas of interest. We've had people with different professional backgrounds, medics, dietitians, allied health professions, nurses, even a teacher who you may not think of health and social care directly, people working in the CCG, doctors, the range really. And what we do is with the fellowship that people apply, they will have an opportunity to develop a project, could be research or implementation. They will have a training program, teaching. So there's some online at the moment because we had to move to online teaching. And also the fellows have a action learning set run by an expert, Professor Mike Cook. To date, we've had more than 100 fellows. So at the moment, we have 8 fellows, and 4 of them are research and 4 of them are implementation. And because of COVID, we have, this current cohort is running over 2 years because we made sure we could accommodate and enable them to complete their projects despite the pandemic. So the implementation fellows are led by Professors André Lemay and John Gabet. And we are now, this group will finish this year in December. But in the autumn, we are going to be opening the new program for 2022. So it would be great to have you attending, for example, our fellow showcase. That's when they complete in December. And in the autumn, we'll be opening the call for 2022 for a start in April. So a couple of changes. If you're very familiar with the ARC Fellows, you'll notice that we are running now April to March. So we changed the timing of the fellowship. And also the backfill. So the fellowship offers a backfill for the person who is running the project. Now we have a maximum amount per candidate, but that should enable most of the applicants to be able to have a day protected for their project with the ARC Fellowship. Now we have also other more traditional approaches to research capacity. And these, for example, involve PhD students. So you heard some of them, and Alice just being awarded a prize, so well done, Alice. And across all the themes that we run in the RC, we have PhD students. And in some of the themes, we have more than one. And that's because we are working very hard to ensure that we can bring more PhD students from our partner organizations to be also part of our ARC program. And that is in terms of facilitating funding or also identify other opportunities for their development to be part of our cohort. We also have postdoctoral fellows, and you've heard presentations from several of them, both today and last week. And these are people who are already more senior, but working towards the independent development and setting up their own research. And there's another initiative that we've been doing now in the ARC in the last 18 months. We've been offering research placements, and this is to focus on trying to attract and identify and expose really very early people and undergrad students to opportunities in a research career. And to date, we've done a few, we've offered a few fellowships, placements, and we hope to continue to offer those. So one last thing, if you are based in different parts of the region, what we've been doing is also helping disseminate and put the word out there for people to understand that many opportunities to apply. And I always will say in our roadshow that we're very lucky in this country. The focus and the opportunities for people to develop a research career are really, really great. Not many other countries in the world offer such opportunities for applied health research careers. And so we run roadshows, and initially, before the pandemic, we planned to do the 4 roadshows, one per population in focus. So we managed to do a face-to-face in Stevenage soon after we started with the ARC, but after that, with the pandemic, we switched to roadshows virtually. And while this is a shame because we cannot be touring around and meeting people face-to-face to discuss their ambitions or ideas, it's actually enabled more people perhaps to attend, because by doing online, people can easily join from their workplace or if they're working from home and still have access. And how do we do that? As I said, we don't work alone with a vision to improve capacity building. So we work with the academy. We invite them, they come to our roadshow with the research design service. We are working also in parallel with the clinical research network. So these are other parts of the NIHR, which we are trying to work in a concerted effort to make sure we are pushing people in the same direction for the success. But also we work with other partners, such as the CLAC East and the Health Education England, which the CLAC East runs the bridging program. And all of these different funders and parts of the infrastructure, they will support people at different stages of their development. And that is really important to us to make sure that we retain the best and those who wish to stay really in a career, or either in terms of their own development or to improve their services and making sure what they've learned, for example, in their fellowships are really implemented in practice. So just to conclude, if you would like to hear more, please do get in touch. So I think the best ways I would recommend is for you to sign up for our newsletter. And I just put a little screenshot for you to find in our website. This way you're going to receive weekly updates on our activities, including when the roadshows are run, but also the fellowships when they're going to open, and any other information that may be relevant to you or to the organization that you are based. If you are interested in more NIHR Academy opportunities, do have a look at the website, but please do also get in touch with me. And one of my roles, I am responsible also for supporting development of research capacity in the region. So some people can get in touch directly for any information, or I had chats with people who found us and then came to ask, do I do a PhD? Do I start with a master's? Where do I start? So please do get in touch, because I think this is important. The earlier you talk to people and check which options are available, then we can help support you through that. Okay, so I think that's all for me at the moment, and then hopefully see you in the questions.
Great, thank you very much, Aneda. Whilst everyone else is joining the panel, I'm very interested that you showed the different parts of the NIHR infrastructure in the region, and it struck me that those different components are beginning to work really well together. And I wonder whether you feel that's right and what changes need to be made to improve that.
You're right. It feels exciting. I think we are in good communication with the different partners, and we run events together. So, for example, I think with Health Education England and Clark East, led by Tina Jerish-Harrod and Christy Deaton, I go to the event and they come to ours. So we ensure that people who are applying or considering to apply, they can identify themselves in a pathway. And also with Clinical Research Network, we are now planning other activities in terms of training of people to be able to deliver studies and an NIHR Academy. So I think, of course, we can always do more, but I think we are all on the same page. And I think we have established a good channel of communication to enable these activities.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So we've got some terrific questions, actually. I'll go through them approximately and try to go through them in the order of the presentation. So to the health economics and prioritization theme, could you give an example of how your citizen engagement and discrete choice approach has really come up with some surprising or groundbreaking results that changed your prior conceptions?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think changing prior conceptions, I think I might ask, I don't know if Rory's on the call, I might see if he wants to add anything to the work that he's doing in cystic fibrosis. But I think one of the ideas in the work that we've been doing with the team at the Royal Brompton Hospital, looking at people with cystic fibrosis, has been considering whether what the outcomes are that are important in cystic fibrosis for people with cystic fibrosis, and increasingly recognizing that people in cystic fibrosis consider treatment burden to be a very important outcome for them from their treatment, reducing treatment burden. And I don't know that it was a surprising result, but the early indications of Rory's work, which he's analysing at the moment, and you might want to add, Rory, is that, that treatment burden is very important for people, but maybe not to overlook all the other health outcomes that are also important. So we've got to remember that there is that very wide range of outcomes that are important for people, but that's very early work still sort of being analysed at this point in time. I don't know that it was surprising, so maybe it doesn't completely address the question, but I think what it really does emphasize is the importance to include consideration of what's important for patients when we think about outcomes. That's
great. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to move on so we get through as many questions as we can. The next one, to the inclusive involvement theme, the team. We've learned a lot about inclusive involvement during COVID. What do you think is going to change post-COVID?
Should I come in on that?
Please do, yes.
I think that's a really, really big question, because one of the things I think we've learned is that there have always been problems with traditional ways of involving people. And that's why we've ended up, I'm afraid, using terms like hard to reach. But of course, there are new complexities and new difficulties and new exclusions with distance working, and most obviously has been digital exclusion. What worries me most is that we will end up, because these are policy issues as well as individual researcher issues, not with getting the best from both and a new combination for our new normal for research, but perhaps falling back to some of the worst and the most excluding. And it has worried service users and our organisations that one code started, and for some long time afterwards, it was as if when something really difficult crops up, there's a health emergency, for example, then we drop all those things which are about making sure we listen to people because it's difficult and we've got to get on with the real task. As we found out, the real task is actually significantly about listening to people, both taking note of the traditional science, which has been valuable here, but also of what I call the new science of taking note of experiential knowledge. And isn't it interesting that it wasn't the traditional approaches that warned us first that loss of taste and smell was quite important as a symptom? It was people identifying it from their own experience. We need to have the two, and we need to do the best, not the worst.
That's great, thanks. Thank you, Peter. I'm going to move on so we get questions to all the presentations. If there's time, we'll come back. Next one was to the Aging and Multimorbidity team. And here's a good question. I was very interested in your presentation. How have you dealt with the differences in the organizations of care homes, such as family-owned versus chains owned by hedge funds, for instance? Is there a different approach that needs to be taken? Claire, you're smiling. I think you're going to take that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that question captures so much about doing research with care homes, is that they are so different. And we're still in a situation where at least half of our care home providers are actually only 1 or 2 care home operations. And yet, obviously, research tends to go to the places that it's easier to access through the chains. So we are conscious of it, and we constantly work to include as many as possible and work closely with the sector representatives, of which there are many. And yes, I do think there are differences, and it almost links to Peter's comment. There's definitely inequalities in terms of access to services between care homes, and also we're beginning to witness the impact of digital inequalities as well, in terms of how data is shown and known about their experiences.
Thanks. Another question. So this is about the Deprescribing project, and it's an interesting one because I don't think we do enough research on stopping things. It's always about starting new things. So Deprescribing fits into the stopping, and it was, question is, can we hope to see family members being given information as to why deprescribing is taking place? So the professionals think it's a good idea, but from the family's point of view, it can cause a lot of anxiety, much of which would be unnecessary.
Shall Crystal, or I don't know if Sean is on
No, I
the
don't
panel.
think Sean's on the panel. Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Yeah, so that's a really good point about the involvement of family members, especially when it comes to older adults who might not be able to be involved in decision making that's going on. So making sure that family members or those different representatives are involved. For example, in the stopping study with care homes and deprescribing, it's involving all stakeholders, and that includes family members of individuals who maybe have cognitive issues or maybe are not able to contribute, as well as just involving them and to get a better idea about how they view deprescribing, and acknowledging the fact that there are concerns on their behalf about questions about, oh, what does that actually mean? Is care being stopped? Does that mean they're getting worse? You know, all those kind of things need to be communicated to them to, you know, make sure that those concerns are being addressed. And it's not, you know, we're not giving up on care with them. We're actually, for deprescribing, actually reducing certain medications could actually improve their situation, because it could reduce likelihood of interacting drugs and side effects and preventative measures, really, actually.
Great, thanks. Now a question for the mental health theme, and it's about Artemis, the Artemis study. Very interested in the involvement of school students and school staff in the design and those co-design examples, but did they think that it was a good idea to do the thing in the first place?
So I
Maybe
can
Joe
take that one.
or Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, I think Joe and Maria are not here to answer the question, but yes, I think this when we proposed this project to the schools in the region, they saw the value. Obviously, what they wanted is some kind of mechanism to make it easier and also to make it more straightforward. And also they are interested not just in the fact of identifying, but how they can receive the help that, I mean, the pupils can receive the help that they may need. So yes, plenty of support. And we are learning more and more in mental health about doing research, applied research and implementation with non-NHS settings, such as the schools or the Job Center Plus. So this is something that has been expanding in our theme, and this probably is a sort of an evolution from the Clark now arriving to the ARC, that we are widening the horizon and understanding that mental health problems are not just placed in the NHS setting. It's much more beyond that. So yes, huge interest, and again, an unmet need that Artemis is trying to address.
Thanks, Jesus. Another one for inclusive involvement, the inclusive involvement team, and this is this says there've been great examples of innovative inclusive involvement over the morning, and much of your work is cross-cutting in the ARC. What have you learned about IIRP from the other themes you work with? Who'd like to take that one? Fiona, maybe, or Elspeth?
I'm happy for Elspeth to take it if Elspeth, I suspect we might actually pull out the same example, but
okay, Elspeth.
Well, I'd just like to, I mean, we're very lucky to have the PSIP group, of course, that Catherine Cummerton runs across, which is bringing all of the researchers together and, of course, working with all the different communities. And I think what we've learned a bit, everybody, all the messages that we've heard about working with communities, and especially during this COVID time, that we've had to work particularly with stakeholders when we can't actually go out to people, but working with people who are working with them. So our local council, Stevenage Borough Council, that the example I gave, have been so supportive in being able to work across those themes. So we're all learning a lot, and of course that's exactly how our theme should be. We shouldn't be doing it all, everybody is doing it. That's part of patient and public involvement, and now much wider to the PSIP communities.
That's very interesting. It's a really dynamic area, isn't it? I suppose being prepared to learn is what you were saying, Fiona, at the beginning of your presentation. That's the key. So it's now 11:58, so I think we've got to wrap up. We've had 32 speakers at least during this morning. That's something that we couldn't do if we'd had a conventional conference. I think there are many positives that we're learning from this COVID work. So thank you very much to all those speakers and to everyone who has participated in the work that's been presented. And thank you to all the participants on this showcase call, and to the many, very many organisations and people across the region who take part in our collaboration and make it happen. And as I said last week, I also want to thank the NIHR actually, because what's going on is fantastic and innovative and creative. And I think they're to be congratulated for allowing us to do this. We're learning an enormous amount. I'd like to thank Catherine, who's already been mentioned, Catherine Cummerton. Catherine, you put a lot of work into organising this, and of course the open audience team in the back room, who have made all this happen. Thank you for the questions. As I've said earlier, we will continue to respond to these, and we'll make something of the work that's gone into those, and we'll make it available after the showcase. This is being a public facing event. There's one person I'd like to take the opportunity of thanking, because it's going to be one of her last events with the ARC, where Angela Shine, who's been our business and operations manager, who is moving on to pastures new at the end of the month. And I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of us all, Angela, for all the work that you've done as such a central person in the activity that we've showcased today. So thank you all very much for attending, and I look forward to another kind of event like this where we see how our work progresses. Thanks, everyone.